The guys in the US and China, they're not any smarter. They're not any brighter. They're not any better than us. They just have, more trust within the system to actually come and innovate. So you need to respect and give your talent the space to make mistakes, and you need to give them the space to actually grow into their own management style. Culture is built on top of achievement. If you achieve together, then you have a culture together. Whatever your culture is, if it does not achieve, it is useless.
Welcome back to another episode of the Change Officer podcast that is brought to you by our friends at podster.com. Creating a podcast can be easy if you have a team of dedicated professionals helping you to deliver your message. That is what the group of podcast enthusiasts are doing at Podster. So, if you have an idea for a podcast, book a free consultation session with them and find the best way to spread the word about your business mission. All right, staying on top of what is going on in technology is becoming an impossible task. Every day, innovative and groundbreaking technologies are being discovered. What can an entrepreneur do to find his place in this enormous field? And more importantly, what is the next big thing? For this episode of The Change Officer, I invited the serial entrepreneur, CEO of Bark and Rizek, the guy whose company holds world records by executing the longest drone flight for the delivery service. You might remember him from the Jitex episode we recorded last year, which is when I realized I had to invite him for a longer chat to pick his brain about amazing technology that we are discovering every day. Stay with us in the next 40 minutes as we try to find out what is the next big thing in tech. I am Vuk and you are watching the Change Officer podcast. And welcome to the Change Officer again.
Thank you, Vuk. Thank you. Good to be here again.
After a great conversation that we had at Jitex, it was short and sweet. We reflected a bit on what was going on tech scene in the region. The link is in the comments and the description. You can visit that episode as well. But I'm really happy to have you actually in the studio now with me here.
Happy to be here, man.
So we can have a nice continuous chat that we started in Jitex.
For sure. Happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
A lot of things are going on with you, with the space, with the region. We just kicked off before we started shooting about NFTs, metaverse, technology, rapid change, fear of missing out. I feel anxious every day. Like, am I being left behind? Do I need to change rapidly? I'm aware that I need to change something, but do I need to change now or have some time? So we'll talk about all of that a bit. I want to start, casually first reflecting on what's going on with Rizek and what's going on with Bark. Which are two exciting startups that you founded that you're working on.
Well, Rizek is going through growth, a stage of hypergrowth, basically, over the past while. The value proposition has proved more and more needed as we've escalated through the pandemics and different waves of the pandemic and so on, and as it became a lot harder for brick and mortar SMEs to exist, there has been a huge shift towards digital on-demand infrastructure, and I think this is where Rizek had become is witnessing or is living the stage of growth that we are seeing it right now. We have very exciting stuff that we're working on for this year.
Nice.
New services, new lines of service, new countries, new geographies. So I think we're pumped about that.
Nice. And I saw you've been talking about Bark a lot, which I wasn't even aware when we spoke for the first time. And then all of a sudden you're publishing on LinkedIn that you broke a Guinness World Record.
Yes.
And what is this about? So tell us more about Bark and what you are guys up to.
So Bark is a very interesting project. I think what makes it interesting is multiple different things. The first thing is the first of its kind in the region. It is the region's first attempt at building instead of buying in a space that we have historically been purchasers in, which is the automotive industry. We have not been building anything out of this region. And this is where Bark came in. It's our personal reaction basically to the very crowded last mile delivery space.
So tell us more about what Bark really is.
We basically build and operate last mile delivery vehicles,
Okay.
which is electric mobility and electric vehicles of two-wheelers and lighter infrastructure.
Mm-hmm.
Right now we're launching very soon with our first 3 products, which is electric motorcycle, if you will, an electric bicycle,
Mm-hmm.
and a drone. And those are all used for last mile commercial purposes.
I'm curious about the drone aspect.
Yeah.
And that's one of the World Guinness records that you broke was with the drone. Tell us more about that aspect, that whole space of drones.
Yes.
I mean, drones kind of appeared in our life recently,
Yes.
and they took over. I mean,
they are taking
unbelievable.
over, that's for sure. It's because if you look at last mile as a space, the unit economics are not making any sense. Nobody's making any money, whether it's Delivery Hero, Uber, Careem, Talabat, whoever you're talking to, nobody's making any money. The margins are, razor thin.
Why?
Because the business model evolved so quickly while the infrastructure stayed 100 years ago. The motorcycles that are being used on the roads today are the same motorcycles that existed 100 years ago.
Yeah, like Hondas from Japan.
Yeah, but the business model is super advanced now when we're talking about 10-minute delivery and cloud kitchen deliveries and all of that, and decentralization of food and decentralization of pharmaceuticals and all of that. The business model is super advanced, but the infrastructure cannot sustain. It's too expensive. It's too old and it's too outdated.
So that became the weakest link.
Exactly. And when we looked at the space, I had a very simple thesis, is that everybody in the last mile space is losing a lot of money. What are they losing money on? This is where I want to be. Where everybody's spending a lot of money, this is where I want to be. And this is where we decided, okay, we're not going to wait for China or Japan or the US, India to build a vehicle for the region. The space is already big. It's already moving. And somebody has to come in and start getting at it. And this is where we started building our vehicles. The drones came as a reaction to unit economics. The unit economics of sending a 100 kilogram human being on a 500 kilogram vehicle to deliver a 300 gram Happy Meal is not very logical. It's not very sound. Drones are faster, they're cheaper, and they can do the job a lot more efficiently than people. And the unit economics are very simple. If a rider can do 10 deliveries or 20 deliveries per day, a drone can do 100.
But like, how far away are we really going to see all of these drones flying in the air soon?
You probably won't see them because they fly super high, but they will be flying. They are already flying, and they're already been using for a lot of commercial purposes. What we're trying to do with Barq is bridge the gap between security and safety and the commercial aspect of things. And this is where a lot of work is being put in with the government and with the different, interested entities on how can we make this safe? How can we make it viable? And how can we make it work? And this is why we broke the world records, because every time I was pitching to investors or everybody I was talking to anybody, they're like, drones are such an ambiguous thing that everybody says we've heard about it, we've seen it, but nobody actually knows the technicalities of it. So every time I'd be pitching to investors or to anybody, we've seen better drones in China, we've seen better drones in India. So we were determined to break world records with them. We're the best. There is no better drones. We're officially the best in the world. It doesn't have to be India or China or whatever. And that was a big statement to make.
What was the record that you broke?
So we broke the records for longest deliveries, non-stop, and with swapping batteries.
Okay.
Just to show that we make the actual commercial case and we can compete. We actually do have the talent and the tech and the know-how to compete with world-class players.
I'm interested in one aspect of this kind of technologies drone, which is autonomous vehicle, right? And we had numerous discussions about autonomous vehicles coming. But there is one thing in that whole process of launching a product like that, which is tricky. There is no space for error. It needs to be 100%, right?
True.
Although even with the slim percent of error, you're still better than a human.
Yes.
Because they crash, unfortunately.
Yes.
Now for the drone, to put it out in the air to operate, you need to be 100%.
Yes.
How do you go around that?
Just like you put an airplane in the air that weighs hundreds of tons and carries hundreds of people. You need to trust in the technology. It is going to happen. But technology, what people don't understand is technology is not an act of Genesis. It is not created out of nothing. Technology is built on a know-how theory, which means somebody made a mistake at some point. Somebody, possibly in this space, died testing something until we get to the knowledge acumen enough to launch a product that
Sure.
is usable at. And there is no such thing as no margin of error. It's just a problem that if we manage to compare autonomous computers to human beings, autonomous computers are so much better.
Of course.
They're so much safer. Even if they crash, even if it's not 1% of the, even if it's 50% less, even if it's 50% less efficient than 100%, it is still better than a human being. It is still more trustworthy to be in the steering wheel than a human being.
Sure.
But the problem is emotional more than it is binary, because computers are, black and white. They do not understand feelings and so on. And then again, it depends on how much value you put on human life. For people like us in this space, the value on human life is infinite. You will always sacrifice the machinery. You will always sacrifice the money invested. You will always as long as it does not jeopardize human life. But we are there. We are almost there. The technology is almost there. The technology is almost fully autonomous. Our deliveries and our world records were broken on fully autonomous basis.
And everything is produced in UAE.
Everything is in the UAE. Everything was done here, and everything is local. And the teams are here as well, which is why we feel Barq is or if I don't achieve anything with Barq, the only thing I want to achieve is for people to understand that it is doable. Out of here is doable. The guys in the US and China, they're not any smarter. They're not any brighter. They're not any better than us. They just have, more trust within the system to actually come and innovate. And I think Barq is a statement towards that. It can be done. It can be done here.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Talking more about now, elevating the topic on the business overall in general. You, since I met you, everything started by, we found out about you, founder of Rizq. Okay, we want to talk about Rizq. Then we figured, okay, I realized there is a lot of other things going on, a lot. And every time we sit, I figured that as well. There are multiple things that multiple businesses that you founded. I'm not sure if you're running them all now, but how do you manage to stay on top of all of these things? We're aware of Rizq and Barq now, but there are other stuff as well.
The question is wrong, because everybody thinks we need to be on top of. You don't need to be on top of things. Things will move. On top of things means you're adding more weight into things. So things are lighter when you're not on top of them. That's an actual, physical reality. It depends on what your purposes are and what your targets are. If are you purely financial? So are you thinking I want to make money? If that is your understanding, then a lot of the time you will figure out that there are better people who are situated to make my business make more money than I am. As a founder, is my purpose to run the business? Is my target to be as operational as possible? Then maybe I'd want to be more and more involved. For a long time of my life, my targets were purely financial. I want to take those businesses into pure financial performance. And when you're talking about pure financial performance, there's always better people to carry the business, like we said last time, from 1 to 100.
Sure.
Because those are people who look only at the financial metrics and who have no regard whatsoever to how you feel about the business. Because as a founder, you're always struck with, founder poison, which is, this is your baby, this is your company. You don't want to leave it. You don't want to do this. You don't want it to look like that. But a person who's fully directed in a certain direction will lead it into wherever it's supposed to go. And this is where a lot of the time I try and make myself negligible in the business cycle that I'm running, and I try to remove all dependency from me as much as possible, because I've learned over the years that the best businesses are self-sufficient businesses. They do not need one man to run. And if your business is completely dependent on you, that's questionable.
How fast can that happen? I mean, you start a business. You can't just go out and hire people and just let it be.
No, you can't. You have to time
for a while, right?
And this is part of of management genius, right? You need to have that acumen to say, okay, this is the point. I start disconnecting, and you don't just disappear, right? You make it a very gradual process through which you break the business into a lot of molecules that are handed to different people. At the beginning, as a founder, you're doing everything. You're the guy posting on social media, and you're the guy going on pitch raises, and you're the guy doing everything. Eventually, when you start breaking those tasks down into subject matter experts, you will be able to sit back and see that, okay, now I'm only doing 10% of what I used to be. How do I decrease that 10% to 5% if I want to? if it's within my mission statement.
How do you use the rest of 90-95%?
Exactly,
What do you do?
exactly. Because you can't convince me that any individual founder is good at everything.
Absolutely
Not even the Steve Jobses of the world, not even the Elon Musks
That's
of
not a
the
good
world.
founder then.
Exactly. There's a lot of great talent that works with those people. And great talent will only operate if you give it a great challenge. If you keep all the interesting stuff to yourself and you get everybody else to just do, run chores, great talent will not stick.
That's interesting, yeah.
Right? So you need to pass on. Great talent is fueled by challenge. You need to pass on the bigger challenges to other people. And you need to be super okay with watching them make mistakes. Because up until you became a founder, you've made a lot of mistakes.
That's why you became who you are.
Exactly. So you need to respect and give your talent the space to make mistakes. And you need to give them the space to actually grow into their own management style. And that's a mistake that I've done time and time again. I used to hire managers with the expectations that they will be like me and they will have the same school of thought as I do. But then I discovered that no, they should not be. And everybody has different management styles and I have to incubate that and be okay with it.
Sure. No, that makes sense. And I think it's very important, and we're going to take it out as a micro content, throwing challenges at your stuff and letting them fail. Something that I learned as well. And when you realize how powerful that is, it's such a joy seeing someone fail.
Yes.
Because you can see that they are learning, and that's the only way to learn.
100%.
You are a keen promoter of women entrepreneurship and entrepreneurs. And last time we spoke, you told me that you started picking almost all women leaders in your company.
We try. We've as much as we can. We try. I just believe women do it better.
Oh, really?
I honestly speak, like, this is my own personal opinion, but I honestly feel that I do not agree with the whole segregation of women leaders and men leaders. Leaders are leaders. It doesn't matter what their, sexual orientations are. But I believe women do it better for the better part of my life, or for
Leading.
the better part. Yeah, because
why?
Because I feel they're naturally more empathetic. They have a lot more natural empathy. They have a lot more natural loyalty and natural, stickiness with problems. They nurture problems. As a man, I lack the ability to nurture anything. Right? I'm super impatient. I want things to be done super fast, and a lot of the time we can't, as well as we try to, and as civil as we try to look, we can't put our egos aside. Well, it's very easy for a woman to put her ego aside to make things happen. It's not easy for a man, and this is very challenging because that makes us very primitive as compared to what women can do. And I've seen it in a lot of other technical spaces. I look at myself and I look at other, my female colleagues and so on. They can do 100 things at a time, while for me, like, I basically can't chew gum and walk at the same time. I need to pick one thing, one specific problem statement, and make it super stupid for me to be able to deal with it. While some of my other colleagues who are females happen to juggle, 10, 20 problems at the time and run a family and have kids and all of that super successfully without suffering with it. So, yeah,
How many women leaders do you have now among your staff?
But between both businesses, I could say, we have a good amount.
More than 50%?
I don't have a percentage. I'm saddened to say we're probably still at like maybe 20%.
Oh, okay.
But again, it is because, and maybe this is a bit historical and it's not as business oriented, because this region at some point in time, we confused our cultural affiliations with our religious affiliations, and we started trying to portray our culture as religion, right? But our religion does not have any limitations on women in the workplace. In fact, it is a big promoter of women in the workplace. But again, because some men at some point in time could not put their ego aside, wouldn't have women in the workplace, and started trying to portray that as culture, as religion, and say it is religious for a woman not to exist in the workplace. And that maybe took us back a lot. But I feel there's a huge movement that is happening right now. If you look at Saudi Arabia, if you look at the UAE, if
things
you look
are
at
changing.
places like Jordan, it's moving a lot.
It's moving fast, yeah.
And for me, again, I'm a big believer. It's yeah.
Honestly, me too. So you speak about toxic productivity, and you recently posted a nice article on that subject. Tell us more about it. I think it's very interesting.
I think you're the only one that found it a nice article. Most people actually opposed it.
But it's good. Sometimes you need to publish stuff like that to spark the conversation.
Yeah, I'm very, I think I've never been really affected by opinion. I've never really believed in people's opinions, so I write things like that, and people have the freedom to accept it or reject it. But toxic productivity is basically my reaction, or what I see as to, there is a huge movement towards promoting this marshmallow concept of a workplace, where everything is, people are sliding down slides and chilling on beanbags and playing video games, and things are all, pink and butterflies and rainbows, and there are no problems. Business has never historically ever been conducted like that. And not just business, any challenge. Challenge by necessity is difficult. Challenge by necessity is really difficult. And being, especially startup culture, a startup is all about beginning something from scratch, meaning you don't have resources and you don't have time and you don't have a lot of other things that make life comfortable. It is most of the best of ideas grow out of a natural place of challenge, of discomfort, very high levels of discomfort. If you look at Steve Jobs starting out of a garage, or if you look at Elon Musk sleeping and showering at the gym, and people like that. And when you look at those people, they're not the friendliest of people, because they understand, I'm not here to be your best friend. I'm here to get the job done.
Actually, and the one that you mentioned, far from that.
Yeah. And I'm going to get the job done, and I'm going to be very brutal about it. I'm not going to entertain incompetence. We've gotten to a point where we're trying to promote a work culture of incompetence. We're telling people that, you know what, it's okay to be incompetent. Don't meet your targets. You're going to go on a, what do they call it? A performance improvement plan, so that, maybe we're trying. No, life is not like that. If you look at countries like China, where there is a huge pool of talent that is competing over things become super challenging. As a founder, you're being put in the seat where other people are entrusting you with their money to reach certain targets, whether it's financial or otherwise. And to sit there and, try and spend your time and effort on worrying about people's emotions and how people are feeling and so on and so forth, and trying to promote a workplace of, it's okay to not meet your targets. It's okay to be it's not okay. It will, at least for me, it will never be okay to be incompetent. You need to be ferocious. You need to be an animal when it comes to achieving what you're meant to achieve, because the natural case is somebody else is on your heels. Somebody else is running as well. Somebody else is competing. And we've gotten to a point where we're trying to promote all of this. Be civil, be nice. No, you don't have to be. Be ferocious, be an animal, be as tough as it could be. But then never ever mistake it for the lines of politeness, respect, and what have you. You can be super competitive and super respectful. You can be super ferocious, super brutal, but super respectful of the people you work with, and super involved in taking care of what they actually need. But my basic theory about this is, I believe the greatest of teams are put together. People who suffer together stay together. It's not people who sit on beanbags together. It's not people who, do all sorts of fun activities that you see on LinkedIn. But teams that suffer together, if Vuk and I are working together, and Vuk can trust 100% that I am there for him and I'm going to do my part, and I can trust 100% that Vuk is going to do his part, irregardless of the fact that, Vuk doesn't really speak to me in the way that I like, or Vuk didn't really say good morning to me that day, or whatever it is. That's how it works. We need to suffer together to grow together. Otherwise, this whole business is going to shut down. And at that point, no beanbag is going to save your life.
No, I agree with you 100%. Although I'm not sure how to manage that, because I believe that was born out of a counterbalance of rapid acceleration of economies, companies, organizations, and current state where everyone is just fighting for that big success or career achievement, etc. And I think this is counterbalance to that, which is also not the greatest. So it's a sensitive topic. That's why probably you got a lot of comments on the article.
But I'll ask you, Vuk, did we ever stop competing? We just started acting more sly about it. We're just trying to hide it.
Yeah.
We're just trying to be more slick and less honest about competing.
Yeah,
and this is
they're
where
not doing a
corporate
great job.
politics
Yeah, I
comes
agree.
from, right? This is where this whole political scene, you walk into certain companies and you feel like you've walked into a political atmosphere, right? You feel like
No,
the
it became too
everybody's
much.
like trying to
It
do
became
something.
way too
underground.
much. Yeah, it
Yeah,
became way
then
too much.
no, we've never, it is innate in the human nature to compete. But it is, the balance is trying to be a warrior, compete, be a fighter. Do not hold yourself down. Do not kill your natural instinct. But then again, do it with dignity and respect, and do it in a way where you don't hurt other people. If you look at, and again, I'll use the examples again. History has been, the best teacher.
Yeah.
If you look at Steve Jobs, Steve Jobs was known to firing people on the spot. He was not a friendly guy. But he had his own genius. But it's because he was super focused. He was super focused on a mission. He was super focused.
You cannot create great things unless you're like that, right?
Exactly. You cannot create things while I'm focused on Vuk's emotions as well as sending out a great product and how my investors are going to feel. No. I have one lotus of attention, and all of my attention is there. Vuk is either on board or off board.
And that it also depends who are you joining. I mean, if you know the company that you're joining and what's their mission and what are they trying to achieve.
Yes.
If you want to be a part of it, you're welcome to join. But I think many found themselves in the organizations that are pursuing rapid growth while looking for comfort, which is...
It's because a lot of, and this is like, please, everybody who works in HR, stop promoting this fake culture of whatever you want to call culture.
Yeah.
Culture is built on top of achievement. If you achieve together, then you have a culture together. Whatever your culture is, if it does not achieve, it is useless. I can't say this more obviously. I don't care what kind of culture you built where people go into the office every morning and hug each other and, comb each other's hairs. If they do not achieve together, this is a useless culture. And if we benchmark against cultures of great achievement and cultures of rapid growth, and they're usually led by guys like Travis Kalanick, by guys like, Elon, by guys like Steve Jobs and those guys. And those are not the friendliest of people. Those are not the nicest of people, but they do achieve, they do deliver. And this is where culture comes from. The Uber culture was based on the fact that Uber managed to deliver the biggest logistics company of the last 20 years. The culture of Tesla was built on the fact that they managed to build the biggest vehicle business of the last 100 years, and so on and so forth. So what is your culture achieving? That is a question. And build from there.
We're going to leave it at this.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the change. So what is the big change that you expect to happen in the near future that is going to unlock great new opportunities?
It's happening. There's so much change happening that I'm starting to get worried about change. It's happening. This whole shift from physical to digital has taken a whole new, twist over the past 2-3 years. And it is unlocking opportunities that have never existed before. Now you have people like digital artists. Art has historically always been about the talent of the individual and the scarcity of that talent, because that individual can only produce so much. If you look at Da Vinci, you only have, maybe 10 or 15 known pieces.
Yeah.
When you switch that to digital and you say, I can make infinite amounts, this is a new opportunity for modern artists, but does art still have a value is the question, because you took out the scarcity from it. But then again, you see things like NFTs selling for tens and hundreds of millions of dollars. It's like we said, it's ununderstandable. I cannot decipher it, but it's happening. And there's a lot of opportunity that's happening in there. And I think this is, whatever has been happening over the past 3 years, I think is a huge invite for regulators and for people to revisit education and revisit how are we preparing people for the what you call the corporate world, right?
which is going to be completely different.
Is completely different. Jobs that exist now or existed 10 years ago don't exist anymore. They are, extinct. And they're getting more and more extinct as we go.
Yeah.
So how are our educational systems? How are our universities, schools preparing the next generation of people to take part in the new economy, in the new structure?
I have to agree. That's a big opportunity. This whole education space and especially higher education. Looking from the entrepreneurial angle, future change maker, anyone thinking about endeavoring on a new journey, starting a company. It's always good to understand what's coming.
Yeah.
All right. Having that in mind, where would you look at, or where are you already looking at for your next venture? Is there any particular space that you're focused on, that you're paying attention to, that possibly is hiding next big thing?
So I've already taken a huge bet on mobility with Barq. And this, I think, is a space that's going to still be very well present in the next 10 to 15 years. Maybe a piece of advice or something that I'm thinking for future engineers, for future entrepreneurs, is that the definition of future has really shrunk. What we used to think is going to happen in 20 years is now happening in 2 years.
Yeah.
So plan your future accordingly. That the actual definition of future is really shrinking.
It is.
What is valid today might not be valid in 2 years. And we've seen it. We've seen companies come out and be super relevant and 2-3 years later die. So maybe the definition of future should be really, we should be very,
when you say the future, what do you think?
I think 3 years.
2024, 5.
Yeah,
that's
I
it.
think
Yeah.
because we're gonna come and hopefully sit down on another podcast in 2025, and
yeah, for sure.
we're gonna talk about a completely different world. We're gonna talk about things that we've never imagined would happen. Just
sure.
like we have not ever imagined that a piece of digital art will sell for $100 million 2 years ago.
That would
Just like-
literally, if you told that to someone,
They would have laughed off.
they would.
Right?
I
Like,
mean,
look
even now.
Look at all of the art concierges of the world, like the actual guardians of the art universe, all those old people in their nice tuxedos. Where are they now, right? What are they up to?
Exactly.
If I told you 10 years ago that there will be trillions of dollars in exchange in currency that has zero intrinsic value, any economist would have laughed this off,
For sure.
right? What are we looking at? Look at crypto is there's trillions of dollars in that, and there's zero intrinsic value to it. So I really believe in 2-3 years we're going to be looking at different opportunities that are not going to be that have not yet happened.
What is your thought process behind looking at figuring out the next big thing, looking for the opportunity?
Need. It's usually need. It's just, for me, it's in the past it used to be a single factor, which is always, is there necessity?
Okay.
Is it absolutely needed? Now it's two things. Is there a necessity, and is there anybody else doing it?
Okay.
Because if you look at things that have a necessity but nobody else is doing it, this is a huge opportunity. This is massive. But you're going to have to be patient, because until people figure out that is needed, then it's going to be something. So I've been having conversations, and now I was talking to one of our engineers maybe 2 years ago when we were first planning Barq, and we were talking about semiconductors and so on and so forth. And he was predicting that, the world's going to run out of semiconductors, and, it's going to become a problem, and it's going to drive the prices up of all conductor reliant machinery and equipment, which is what we're seeing today. And my reaction to that was that, okay, but I think what's going to happen is that people are going to stop relying on conductors. Somebody's going to come up with an alternative. And he was like, no, I don't think so. Now we're making our first investor in a company that is replacing conductors, because it took the need to happen for people to run out of semiconductors, for them to understand that, okay, we need to start looking at an alternative. So maybe this is a metric that
Very interesting. Okay, before we wrap up and jump into a short quiz.
Quiz.
Yes, I'm going to ask you. Actually, I have a small request.
Yeah.
And that is for you to nominate the next change officer that is going to join us here in the studio.
I'd nominate a very good friend of mine, Sameh Qubaisi from Abu Dhabi Investment Office. Sameh is one of the very interesting people that I've come to know recently, and I've been seeing the beautiful work he's been working on establishing financial infrastructure of exits and mergers for actual startups. I think the work they've been doing is fantastic, and everybody's going to be affected and touched by it. And it's going to give people a lot more reasons to invest and a lot more reason to start startups.
Which is very needed.
Which is very needed. And because for the past while, forever, it's been the fact that, I start a startup in the Middle East. I pray to God that maybe some multinational would give us an exit. Or an IPO or something of the sort. The public markets were not really open. Sameh is opening the public markets for people like that. Of course, him and with the support of the Abu Dhabi government and the Abu Dhabi ecosystem. So Sameh is I'm putting him on the spot.
In that case, Sameh, you have been invited. I hope to see you in the studio soon.
Yeah.
Thanks for the invitation. All right. So last thing before we wrap up, I have a couple of questions that I would like you to get the answer for you. So I'm going to basically give you two options. You will have to pick one.
Okay.
All right. So you are at the seed stage with your startup and you have a limited budget. Who would you hire first? Chief of staff or chief of revenue growth?
Revenue growth for sure.
All the way.
For sure.
It's 2025. Podcast in a metaverse or podcast in a studio?
I hope studio. I hope studio.
All right. $10 million or additional 2 years of life?
2 years of life, obviously. You'll make a lot more money in 2 years of life than $10 million.
Okay.
We should have said $10 billion.
10 billion.
That would have been...
Depends where you're talking to. Depends who you're talking to. All right. Long-term investment in renewable energy or artificial intelligence?
Artificial intelligence.
In race toward $100 million company.
Yeah.
Who would you put your bet on, Rizq or Bark?
Rizq is already $100 million company.
All right. There you go. $500 million.
Yes. I think both are very different businesses, but maybe because of the investor appetite that we've seen in the past few years towards mobility, I think Bark would have a faster financial track, while Rizq would have a more steady financial track.
Would you rather be able to detect any lie you hear or get away with any lie you tell?
I'd rather get away with lies that I tell because I'm pretty good at telling lies that I hear.
Okay. Would you rather always get stuck in traffic?
Okay.
Or always have a really slow internet connection?
What is this? It's terrible. But I think the traffic.
Okay. Which podcast do you prefer? The Change Officer podcast or the Joe Rogan Experience?
The Change Officer. I haven't been on Joe Rogan, so
there you go.
Yeah, I'm a fan of local.
Abdallah, thanks for coming, man.
Great having you. Thank you, Vuk.
I hope that you guys enjoyed this show. I hope that Abdallah managed to open up your minds, inspire you, get some juices flowing, and you're going to act upon your dreams, become a next change maker. Thanks again for coming, taking the time. And everyone stay tuned. There's another great episode coming out next Monday. Take care, everyone.